thought I'd give y'all a little video that shows the basic tools that you actually need to have. A lot of people go to Hobby Lobby, Michael's, wherever, and spend all kinds of money on things from Impress Art that you actually don't need. You don't have to have a bracelet bender. I actually find that they misshapen bracelets more than they actually help, because they try to make them perfectly round. Then you still have to finish off one side, and people's arms are not perfectly round. So it's kind of a little bit of a waste when you can do a perfectly fine job with a pair of these. Now mine are well used and have duct tape on them right now, but I have a couple pair of bending pliers. This pair I don't recommend. I'm ready to trash them. They were a bead landing pair, and something about them just it doesn't do as good as the other pairs. This pair here is an Impress Art pair I got for my daughter, because it is more like the purple ones that I've had for years that I got from Michael's. The simple pair of these you can get with a coupon. You can bend bracelets, you can bend rings, you can do a lot of things with. So they make other more expensive tools completely unnecessary. I'm going to move those out of the way. The next thing is a hammer. Now, a lot of people have a brass hammer. They recommend a brass hammer for various reasons. This hammer is really heavy compared to the other hammer. The other thing is you can see on it the nicking, the chipping on both sides. These things flake off, and after a short period, they're so messed up, they're hardly usable anymore. And then you're stuck buying another expensive $50 hammer, which is unnecessary. I use this hammer on rare occasions, like maybe once or twice a month, period. Due to the weight of it, a lot of people that use these end up having to quit stamping because it causes carpal tunnel, because the hammer is so heavy. And I already had an issue from dental work for years, so I don't use that hammer. I use this hammer. This one is a $2.50 hammer that came from, maybe this one came from Harbor Freight. I have 3 of these, so I have extra. I got one at a flea market from a guy I knew that sold tools. Then I happened to need a second one for my daughter when she was stamping, so I found one on Amazon for about $5. And then I found one at Harbor Freight a couple weeks ago for $2.50. And that is my go-to, I use all day, every day hammer. So $2.50 versus about $40. And this hammer is lightweight. It weighs 8 ounces. And it does the job just fine. You do not have to have a heavy, heavy hammer for most things. This one comes in handy on design stamps, and the mallet comes in handy on design stamps. It also comes in handy if you are stamping stainless steel, but it's a 2-pound mallet, and it's hard to swing, and it's not something you want to use on an everyday, all-day basis either. The ball pen hammer, you can use basically for texturizing around the edges of things. I could show you a piece I did for sample, but you can see how the edge is texturized there. And that's what gives you that look. It's just a light hammering around the edge of the piece, and it just kind of finishes it off. And some things it just makes it look extra pretty. But with this hammer, you don't even need this one because it already has the ball pen on the opposite side. So 2 for 1. I had this one already because I bought the brass one and this one at the same time. And I still use it because it's lightweight, but I use it mostly because it is a tiny bit smaller head. So I use both. But, again, you can use a coupon and get this on sale. Metal shears are not a necessity unless you're going to need to cut metal. Now, I use these mostly to cut bracelet blanks into smaller blanks when I'm making long tags, shoe bars, the secret message tags. So I have to cut it in and then I have to finish off. So that's what I use those for. You've got to have a couple of good sets of pliers, mostly for doing jump rings with. That's what I use these for. I also have some needle nose pliers. I got these in a kit that had several different kinds of pliers in them. Again, a coupon for the kit, and it was like $10 or $15. It's got needle nose pliers like this in there too. But, those are all for finishing things, for putting jump rings together, adding charms, if you're wrapping birthstone beads, things like that. If you're going to make rings, you do need a mandrel, a ring sizing mandrel, so you can size the rings. You can actually bend the ring around this to make a wrap ring with this and a rubber mallet. You don't need a fancy ring bender. You just need a rubber mallet and a mandrel. I've learned how to do it that way, and it's so much quicker and easier. The rubber mallet also, you use mostly the yellow end here to flatten out a piece after you have made it. So if it gets a little wonky and needs to be straightened out, you put it on your Stampin' Block and give it a couple taps, and it fixes the problem. So that's what that's good for. So you kind of need one of those. Walmart, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, couple bucks. You don't have to go buy the expensive mallet from Impress Art to do this. So you can spend a couple dollars, or you can spend whatever the heck god-awful price they charge for Impress Art. I mean, it's really not that expensive. Or you can get one like this one I just picked up at Harbor Freight, and it has interchangeable ends. Same thing, a rubber mallet. Give it a good whack. It's going to fix everything. You do need a Stampin' Block. Now, you can use a little teeny tiny square 2x2s, I think is what size they are. This one is a 4x4. I personally don't recommend getting anything smaller than a 4x4. The 2x2s are good for single blanks only. You cannot fit a bracelet blank on there. You can't do multiple pieces at a time on there. It's just too small. So I honestly never use that 2x2 blank block anymore, except for propping up other things. I either use this one, and I haven't really used it much since I got this one. That's a 6x6. And, there's nothing special about it. That one's kind of rusted, but I put tape on the side I use because it helps keep from marring up the back of the blanks, and it keeps the blanks from slipping so much. But you're going to want to tape the blank down when you're working anyway. You put a little piece of tape on there, and if you have the duct tape on there, it helps it stay better, and it sticks better than it will to just the plain metal surface. So I use the plain electrical tape. I do not buy Impress Art expensive tape. It's the same thing. Theirs is white. Electrical tape is black. You can get a whole great big thing of electrical tape at Walmart, I think is where I got mine. It's a big old roll like this. You can get them, and they come in a 6-pack for a few dollars, and you are set for a year or more in tape. So you don't have to spend a fortune on that Impress Art lineup tape. It's not necessary to spend that much money on it. Then I have steel wool. The triple or quadruple zero grade, super fine steel wool. This is for smoothing your blanks. It's used to give a brushed finish look on a piece. And you just polish the front and back, and it gets so it doesn't look as marred on the back. I use the brush finish a lot. You can get the blanks that are super, super shiny, like the bracelet blanks from Impress Art, but there's a huge difference in these Impress Art blanks. They are very, very stiff. They're hard to bend into a bracelet. I use them on occasion. I just don't like them as good. I don't think they work as good. I don't think they stamp as good. I mean, you can barely bend it with your hands at all. And the ones that I do use are from another company. This is the size you would use for rings, and you can take those bracelet blanks, and they come in a ring size, but it's cheaper to buy the bracelet size. Use your metal shears and cut it into 3-inch pieces, and you can get 2 for the price of 1. But this one I can bend some with my fingers. It stamps easier, and then you bend it, and when you put it in the tumbler, it hardens the metal. And after you've worked on it, that helps harden the metal. So you end up with the same result. But you can never take that Impress Art blank and make a ring out of it. And the ones that Impress Art sells for rings, which are these, are basically crap as far as I'm concerned. They are thin. They don't look as pretty. They don't polish up as good. They're more for a sample for practice, basically. These are ring bending pliers. You need a pair of these if you're going to make rings. This one is the small one for, they call them 2 different things. They call one a ring bender and one a bracelet. No, I don't think they call it bracelet. It's 2 different things they call them, but they're just 2 different sizes, and they both do the same thing. Hold on, I'm going to make y'all dizzy. But this one here is bigger, and if you're doing a bigger size ring, like an 8, it works better. This one works better if you're doing things like for the beads to put on a bracelet. You're trying to make tiny things. So this one's for rings. This one's for the teeny tiny things. So that's why I have 2 pair. I'm going to flip this around so I can try to show you how these work. So if I was going to make a ring with it, I'd put a wrap ring with this. I would stick it on here and hold it, and just bend it around. And you start out getting your basic shape with the ring benders. Push it a little more. Start bending it down. And you've got your basic shape. Then you would put it on the ring mandrel and squeeze it to the right size. And tap it with a mallet a few times, with a rubber mallet, and you'd have, your basic wrap ring. Nothing's extra special to have it. It's not hard. It's pretty easy to do. You can do it that way. So that's where those pliers come in. Or you can do a wrap ring even easier. I'll flatten that back out so I can show you. On a mandrel. You say you want a size 8 ring, you put it on here. You bend it around like that. You take it off. Twist it a little bit. Put it back on. Then you're going to push down. Push down. If it's once, that's where it's easier to push. So you get it about the right size. Then you're going to lay it down a little bit, tap a little bit, tap a little bit. You've got your size pretty close. Then you can finish it off here like that. Smooth it up. Put it back on. Tap the edges just a little bit to curve it down. So you've got your ring bent completely. You can do it like this. If you need to resize it, you need to get it smaller, you put it on your block, tap a couple times, tap a couple more, and it will squeeze it together a little more, get your size better. And I made a wrap ring in just a couple of minutes. So there's a lot of little tricks like that that do not require you spending a whole lot of extra money. So if you're just going to make basic wrap rings, you can do that without having those ring benders. If you want to make those little tiny beads that people are making to put on bracelets, then it's better to have that, because you can bend those without that instead of doing like somebody was saying they did and wrapping it around a big pin, because the pin is plastic and you can't really, you need a metal surface to hit it against. So there's that. I'm also going to show you while I'm showing you, sorry y'all, that this is one of the things as to why you need a really heavy duty surface to stamp on. So I'm going to show you stamping on, this is a wooden desk that's fairly solid. I'm going to move some of this out of the way so I can get to so I'm not on the edge. But when you hit this, you see the bounce, right? That's one reason why you're going to tape your blank down, so that it doesn't move. But you can see when I'm hitting this, even though it seems to be a solid wood desk, it gives you more bounce. I'm going to move over here to another table that I have. That is a pretty steady desk. Louder. I'm going to tap it on here, and this is just with my mallet. Much louder. It still bounces. The whole table bounces and gives. So you don't get as solid of a hit. But over here on my stamping post, much quieter, low bounce, solid hit, and I'm going to be able to stamp a much better impression with a stamping post than I am if I'm on a desk. So that's just kind of a little overview of some of the tools, because some of the stuff that you see people saying you need to get from Impress Arts and spend all this money, you really don't have to spend that much, guys. You can get some of the basic tools you need from Harbor Freight and Walmart, and get the stuff like the pliers you're going to have to get somewhere else off of Amazon or wherever. But you don't have to have that heavy duty brass hammer. You're just giving Impress Art money. They tell you need all kinds of things because it's putting more money in their pocket. It's not that it's that much of a better tool. This is working on over 9 years here. Some of the Impress Art stuff, I had a couple things to begin with. I'm like, I've never used this. It's gone. I gave it away because I found it wasn't great. My most used font sets, and I have a spare set of these. This set right here is actually a Hobby Lobby brand that looks like Bridget. And I got these on sale. And I have had the upper and lower case, and total cost in this set was about $30 total for both upper and lower. And I've made thousands of dollars using these stamps. Actually, this is my main set, and this was my daughter's. But, I use those the most, more than any other kind. That's what I've used in my store. And then I bought this set of Bridget because it was on sale one day. But I got to looking at it, and they're the exact same letters. There's nothing different about the font. Cheaper, more expensive brand by Impress Art. It's a tiny bit smaller. It said 3mm, but this is 3mm, and that one's about a 2.5. So the size is not the same. But my favorite stamps that I've used the most are the cheaper ones. Only till recently have I invested in font fixation stamps because I wanted the cursive fancy writing. This is another set of Hobby Lobby stamps that were plain. These are Murano, the black shaft ones are. You can see how small tapered that is. And the more tapered it is, the easier it's supposed to be to stamp and line up, like you were talking about, lining up in that cursive font. These here are Impress Art stamps, very tapered also. So you can line up with them easy versus the Impress Art that is not tapered at all much, and it has that circle around it. So sometimes when you're stamping with the Impress Art or other ones like that, and you hit it too hard where people are just trying to get that great impression and banging it to death, that little ring shows up in your impression on the outside edge. You can stamp with those, and you can get a good stamp with those, but it's the technique you use and how you do it that makes the difference. And it's the surface that you're stamping on. When I first started, I didn't even realize you were supposed to use a block. And I did talk to someone earlier this week that she was just using on a wooden cutting board. Somebody told her to use that. But it doesn't work. You have to have that heavy surface that's solid underneath it. That's why you need the stamping block. The same thing as to why having a post, and it can be very cheap made, is what I find now to be essential if you're going to be serious about a business, because it gives you a solid surface and a solid hit. And even with cheap stamps, you can get a good impression and a good hit and one good whack. Because this doesn't give. This bounces. This bounces. My desk is going to bounce, but this will not bounce. And it's solid. So instead of the metal bouncing all over the place and the desk bouncing and giving, you're hitting against something that's like hitting against concrete, and it's not going to go anywhere. And it makes it where the only thing that gives is the metal, so hence you get a better impression. So that's why that's, I think, kind of an essential tool, and it really is not that expensive to make a stamping post. Or find something that will work for a stamping post because it's a solid post. This is a power punch. Now you can start out with a small little handheld punch like this. This is the one I've had it for a while. The first day I went out to an event to sell, we were using this, and it broke within about 30 minutes because we were punching so many. We made about $800 that day, and first time out, and I'm going to admit they were not the greatest looking things because we just started. But we broke this punch right away, and I'd paid $20 for it. So off to Michael's I went, because we had to have a hole punch, and I had a 40% off coupon, and I bought this bad boy, and I've had the thing for 9 years. And I have a second one just like it. The reason it's mounted on a vice grip is to make it easy to punch blanks one-handed. Instead of trying to squeeze with two hands, because that's difficult, you can put it on here, this ain't going nowhere, and punch it down, and it punches a hole really fast. Takes way less time to do it. So that's just a couple of things. That's just, in general, of what tools you really need. A lot of that other thing to hold the stamp with, that little rubber thing, you don't need that. That's wasting money. Unless you get a really good deal with it. And to be honest, then you still don't need it. Because while you're holding it with that big thing, you can't see where you're stamping. Versus holding it with your hand. And yes, you may be worried about snapping your fingers, but you can see down there at the bottom where you're at on the metal. And when you got that great big holder in the way, you can't see you can't see how you're lining up. So it affects how you're going to be able to line up your stamps to stamp your pieces. So it's useless. I wouldn't waste my money on one. Or the other little thing that looks like a hammer that holds a stamp. Same thing. You can't see where you're stamping with those. So a lot of this is technique based that you have to practice. They have all those tools out there that people buy, and you'll find them on the detached page because they try it and it doesn't work good, and they end up getting rid of everything and giving up because they've spent a lot of money on tools that actually are not helpful, and some of them, like that thing, are harmful. They make it harder for you to stamp. I'm gonna sign off now and post this video because I just decided to post it so I can see how it'll work and show up in the group. But I think that's a couple of things. Oh, the other thing, you need a good paint marker to color in. You don't have to buy an Impress Art one. I have one, but this one is a Craft Smart. They have different brands. It's just a enamel paint pen. That's the same thing as Impress Art $7 pen. These come in a 2-pack for $3. Same pens. So you don't have to spend. Impress Art is a brand name, and that costs you more. But it's not necessarily better tools. They're just widely known for it. I have my blanks come from a blank supplier that I found on Etsy. Much better quality blanks. They stamp better. Everything about them's better. I have a pair of some Impress Art blanks up there that are for emergency use only or for practice. So your best tools are not necessarily what some people want you to think they'll be. And you'll find Impress Art videos all day long teaching you how to do this, and they're pushing their tools because they're getting paid to push their tools. They have some decent tools, but they're not always the best tool to use. Starting out with Impress Art fonts, if you can find a deal on it, is great. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, and I'm going to admit this right now in this group, I've been stamping with these cheaper stamps for years. I've stamped with the Hobby Lobby ones and these kinds of Impress Art ones. Now, half of these on this shelf I'm showing you, I do not use. Rarely, every once in a while, do I use. I've used Celebration once. I've used whatever that green one is. I forget what the name of it. I've used it once. Melody, I've used a couple times. Charlotte, I've used a couple times. And I forget the name of that one. The orange one, I've only used it a few times. I do use my Juniper set a lot, but that's because it's one of my favorite, and I use it in a lot of designs. But that green set, I use a lot. But I am finding recently, after trying Impress Art stamps versus Supply Guy and a few other people, that Impress Art design stamps are crap, and I've wasted a lot of my money on them. I mean, they do okay. You got to really, really whack them, but when you compare them to the other ones that, yeah, well, Supply Guy, some of his are the same price. They're just sharper and they make a better impression. So it just depends on what you need the stamp, the design stamp for. Is do you need to spend the kind of money, more money on it, or will Impress Art one, if you can find it on sale, be good? If you plan on using it a lot, I would invest in a little more expensive one because it's going to give you a better impression than the Impress Art one. I have a piece right here that I can show you. If I can line it up. Excuse me. This has a B. That stamp right there. That's a Supply Guy. It has a B down here. That's an Impress Art one. And it didn't stamp out nearly as pretty. So that's kind of the difference in what you're looking at. This piece has font fixation fonts, Supply Guy font, Supply Guy design stamps, font fixation design stamps, a couple Impress Art right here, Supply Guy flowers. The lettering is actually a Murano set that I got off a Detash page. So you can get a lot of difference in the impressions, but you know, this one is Juniper set. This is, I don't know, there was something messed up on this one. But you get a good impression with that too. It's all about using the right tools. Talk to you later.